Aman is a conscious parenting coach. She's been a single parent for 5.5 years now and has been on self-explorations and a healing journey as she realized her childhood was impacting the person she was. Aman decided on a change of career to help children by becoming a counsellor. But she came to the realization that to help a child, the parent also needs to be on board. Aman has become a parent coach to help parents have a fulfilling relationship with themselves and their child. Aman Sambhi.
Hi, so my name is Aman. As you heard, I'm a parenting coach. And my journey started 5.5 years ago when my marriage ended. And it started with going to a couples counsellor, and this couples counsellor saw the way my ex-husband was speaking to me, and she said, "Can you please come back and see me, because I want to understand why you let this man speak to you the way you do and treat you the way he does." And when I went back, she said to me, "Tell me about your childhood." And there I was sat and I just cried and bawled, because nobody ever asked me, "What have you been through in your childhood?" And I'd had quite a traumatic childhood. I'd grew up in Africa. I'd had emotional, physical, sexual, there's one more I can't remember, experiences. And I call them experiences because I've done so much work on them that they're not trauma for me anymore. I don't label it as trauma, I label it as an experience. I've healed, I've moved on. But all those experiences led me to meet a man who did not respect me and see me for who I was. But again, it wasn't his fault because I didn't see and respect myself. So how can I expect someone else to see and respect me? So I was in a marriage for 7 years where my husband would outsource. Some people call it cheating. I call it outsourcing now. So he outsourced, and it was every time I would get busy, he would go, "Well, where is she? I'll just go find someone else to keep myself busy." But when I was gifted a child in 2016, he did the same thing again, because obviously my life was fully taken over by this human being who I thought I had to keep safe, and it was only my job to keep her safe, and no one could do it the way I could, because I see now I was projecting my trauma onto her and going, "No one looked after me and no one kept me safe, so I'm going to do this to you, and no one, even your dad can't keep you safe." So for a year we went through this marriage together, and 1.5 years later I found out he was outsourcing again. And for 6 months that carried on, and my daughter was 2 at the time, and she turned around and said to me, "Mummy, why do you always cry?" And I thought, oh boy. And I went to him and I said, "Here's a suitcase, take your shit and please go. You either want me or you want her, and that's it." And he freaked out. I made him leave that night. But I started doing my journey then of finding myself, healing my trauma. What's going on with me? Why have I picked a man like this? Why am I now, all my ex-partners were the same traits in different people. The men in my family were the same traits in different people, in different men I was with. I grew up in a household where the men were always outsourcing as well. You know, my dad, my uncle, my granddad. It was normal to me. It's normal for a man to treat a woman like that. And I'm very grateful that I was blessed with a daughter, because it gave me that realization, no, women should not be treated like this. Women should not think it's okay for a man to say, "Yes, you stay at home and I want you, but I also want other different things on the side." So when I started my healing journey, I realized there's a gap. Children need help, because when you go through trauma, like I'd been through trauma, and nobody talks about it and nobody supports you, you become an adult and your whole life is then written from that childhood trauma, and you're reliving those experiences with different bodies and different people. So as I started working on myself, I went back to university because I thought I need to help children. And doing psychology for 2 years at uni, I realized there's no point in helping a child if the parent's not on board, because if I'm going to help this child, I call it being on a hamster wheel, and I take the child up that hamster wheel and the kid's going to go home and the parent's going to put them back in the hamster wheel. What's the point? So I thought, okay, let's finish this degree off. Let's become a parent coach at the same time. So I'm doing 2 different educations, bringing up a child by myself. And it was the best thing I did because it allowed me to connect with parents and go, right, let's look at you. What's happening with you? Why are you showing up this way? How can I help you not impact your child in a negative way? How can I help you see your child as your team member and not I'm in charge of my child and my child is under me? Let's work as a team. Let's see how we can make you compromise with your child and lay a different path for your child and walk with your child on this path instead of going, walk on my path and this is it, as most of us have been brought up. It's me saying, no, let's bring you together, talk about it, compromise, and go, right, this is where we're going with this, so that your children are having a voice and your children are being able to make their own decisions. But also as you work on yourself and you heal yourself, you're not projecting your stuff onto your kids. You know, I talk about this a lot on my analogies, is when you point a finger at someone, there's always 3 pointing back at you. Look at those 3 fingers. What are they telling you about yourself? And what we do as parents is we end up vomiting onto our children instead of going, actually, let me go heal myself and understand myself. So when I do show up with my child, I'm a completely different person as opposed to the injured or hurt one that I am. And trauma doesn't have to be a big bad thing. When I say trauma, people always go, oh my God, yeah, I never went through anything. But it could be something small like you crying as a baby and your mum not coming to give you milk or water. Your brain would have processed that a certain way and it could have affected in the way you now see the future and how you see different relationships and experiences. And it's just going and healing that little wounded part of yourself and going, it's okay, we're not here anymore. So when your child does go doing the same thing again, you're not coming from this wounded part, you're coming from a more authentic, connected place to yourself, which then gives you a fulfilling relationship with your child. It's like with my daughter, unfortunately, she couldn't be here today, but we have open conversations, you know, where I loved Raj and your daughters, where you have these conversations which are so open, because I have the same with my daughter. And we can, you know, there was a time at school where they were 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they were talking about different families. And the PSHE teacher came to me at the end of school and she went, must tell you, I'm really proud of Avni. I was like, why? They were like, we were talking about different families and she put her hand up and she was 4 or 5 at the time and she went, I have 2 houses and I have my mummy and daddy are separated and my daddy's getting married and da 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 da. And she was like, I'm so proud of it. I started there at gates just crying. I was like, oh my God, I've given her this confidence to go, it's okay to be divorced, because we were brought up with divorce is a bad thing and you should not be separated and divorced and all of that stuff. But for my kid, it's great. You know, my mom is such an amazing person because she's not with my dad anymore. And obviously she hasn't seen the evolution because she's so young. She's only 7 at the moment. But I talked to her about it. Mummy would be an angry person if you'd spilt the water, and if I was 5 years ago, I would have blown your head off. But now I just go, meh, wipe it. Let's move on from it. So the message is work on yourself and understand who you fully are, regardless of you're single parent or not a single parent, so that you can pass on and lay a different future for your children, but walk the path with them then and have that fulfilling relationship with them. But you can only do it if you fully know who you are and you're fully connected to yourself, because then you're not vomiting on them because you've worked on you and you're just seeing them for who they really are. And that's it. Thank you.